There we go. Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome. I didn't want to yell at you.
That was good. That was good. So anyway, we are here today with both Helen O'Leary and Kim Gates Flick from the School of Visual Arts at Penn State, and they teach a course called Sustainable Studio Materials Makers and Methods. And we are very excited to hear about what you all are up to, how it applies to all of us around, and what we can learn. So without further introduction, just thank you so much for being here, and let's start.
Thank you. Kim, you're controlling the PowerPoint there, right? You're on mute, girl. There's something going on with Kim's
Yeah, her picture just disappeared.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, we just started our sustainable studio as far as a permanent course about a year ago, but we've been at this for a long time. Actually, three or 4 years in the development, but Helen and I always say it's a 20-year conversation really that developed it. So this is our class, and do you want to talk and I'll go through, or do you want me to start?
We'll we'll collaborate all the way through.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure I go next, but I'm having some trouble.
I can't see your are you sharing the screen, Kim? Because I can't see anything ourselves.
Uh-oh, I am sharing the screen.
Yeah, because I have you on sharing.
We're not seeing it.
Sorry, let me see here. Share screen. I can see it. Here we go. How about now? You have it now?
Yes.
You can hear me too?
I can see, yeah, but there's nothing going on the screen. It's just, well,
There it is. Yay.
Okay, now you can see it.
There's just a little lag.
Oh, sorry. Well, I said having a terrible thunderstorm here. The next 6 hours we have a storm watch, so I already prefaced it that hopefully this won't crash. But so our course it started out as an inquiry into the natural dye, and we had a good connection with our student farm, and they started growing dye crops for us. But we weren't even halfway through the first semester with the special topics course, when we realized that this was much more than just talking about natural dyes. This was a great pedagogical moment and a platform for us to talk about how artistic practice meets social action. So we started really working with the Sustainable Institute as well, and pulling in some of the development goals. And if we think about art in terms of subject, form, and content, the content becomes for our students. Why are they creating this, and what story do they hope to tell? And they've been telling the stories of sustainability, and there's so much for them to sink their teeth into and to really unpack with each of the 17 development goals, but also how they interact with one another. Like, it's hard to get down one, it's to start researching one and not pull in the other ones. So you want to add to that, Helen?
just keep putting this,
Okay.
throw the slides up here.
So this was our very first farm, the collaboration with the student farm. They grew Japanese indigo for us. They grew marigold and Dyer's chamomile, Dyer's coreopsis, all kinds of interesting things for us to try our first year. And you can see our students here out in front of the farm. We had a really great group the first year, and a lot of different backgrounds. They weren't all artists, so they were in the 200. It was a 200 level course, and here they are. We had to bus over and back, and it was really great because they also did some work while they were there. You know, we worked with plant science, we worked with ag science, we worked with food scarcity on campus. The farm that the students run over there, they run a CSA. So our students learned a lot about what goes into that side of things. And we call this harvesting hope. But while they worked and while they talked with the other students, they talked about like food scarcity. They talked about where your food comes from. They learned all about how you have to keep a balance in the farm. And a lot of them never grew crops or anything. So you can see our dye crops growing right along next to the other crops. And then we just, Helen and I came up with a renewed interest in our research. It totally, not only the students got involved, but our faculty got involved too. And they started an S3A program within our college, which was just kind of putting 3 pillars under one roof of all the different things about sustainability we were interested in, not just environmental justice, but social justice and equity, and just, any of the developmental research things.
And it was so holistically intersectional. It was very easy then to pull in other people from the university. We dealt with somebody from food science who's inventing apps to help people in Africa and in very vulnerable areas of agriculture spot and deal with disease before it becomes a famine. So, it was such an intersectional place for us to point students in different directions.
Yeah, because they bring to their own, it was about this time too that we moved, of course, to a 400 level. And then we got, students who really kind of already were thinking on this term, along these terms. And then each semester we get a whole new subjects of research because our students bring it with them, what they're interested in, right? And so then we try to find connections for them, if it be in plant science, if it be, engineering, whatever it is that they need. Of course, we did exhibits. That's what we do in the arts. So we had a couple exhibitions of student work and of faculty work. And here you can see some of our dye plants and some of our students' work in the showcases on campus that featured our sustainable studio. One of the things I'm really interested in my work is community and how art can be put back, not necessarily a part of, but set aside, but a part of the community. And the student farm is a great place for that. They have a harvest fest every year. The students all attend. They have music, they have reading, they have talks. Our students have things over there. They have food trucks. They have all kinds of things that the students really enjoy this festival. And we're usually a part of that in some way.
It's going to be very interesting teaching this fall with a real consciousness about supply chain, food scarcity, and everything else that's going on in the world,
And then here was our next dye garden where we really decided, this is what we need. And so we really went full on trying to plant a nice dye garden for the students to gather from. But then 2020 hit and we had to move to our homes, basically. But we do, before I talk about that, we grew a syllabus garden at Helen's house, but you can see, like, you guys probably all know this from being in the fibers. And it's the time you start talking and investigating and bringing fibers into the studio, it's such a process. And it's a living laboratory because so many things, so many variables can change it, right? Depending on where the plant's grown, depending when you harvest it, depending what the materials are, the mordants are, how you treat the fibers, all of that goes into it. And we talk a lot about slow fashion versus fast fashion. And we try to take, we look at, part of the reading is from her Fibershed book and also Rebecca Burgess's other book, Harvesting Color. So we really look at, we start slow, but then we look at what we can grow locally, and then we do source fats. Sometimes we'll do source studies where, like with this indigo, we did this that we grew at home and then what we purchased globally. So we have a comparison with it, and we talk about different ways that indigo throughout history was utilized in the labor force, and all of that historical context for it and cultural.
Brings it into the Indigo Wars and brings it into colonialism. So it's again, it's a way of teaching a very expansive subject matter through the physical dyeing and touching of cloth.
And students are so interested in it. It's more than just the making. The whole time they're wrapping these, the whole time they're stitching into it, they're talking, or we're listening to podcasts, or Helen has up ongoing images for them to look at of what other artists did with these kinds of traditional methods, but bringing it into a more contemporary idea for them too. We love to forage. It's probably one of our favorite things, Helen and I. It's definitely mine, and I think hers too. We love walking. We love gathering. We love testing for color. And one of the ways we do that is with these eco prints. And we just find that as soon as, if we have any reluctancy at all, if we start with the eco prints and the testing, they're hooked. You know, it's such a fascinating thing to just roll up a fiber around a stick and throw it in a steamer and get beautiful results. And even the ones that aren't so beautiful, they can be made into something else. So we love our steamers. We also collaborate heavily with the Penn State Herbarium. About every semester, we take our new students down and listen to her talk about our legacy at Penn State of gathering different kinds of species and seeds and botanical studies. And we do have a long history at Penn State for that, stemming even from our first president. So the curator there is also a published author, and she's a great resource for our students. If they have plants that they want to know about, or if they bring in and we don't know, you know, they can go there and she can help them out, or you know, they can email her. And she also shows us how to field press things and how to identify plants, and just, you know, the whole, even the illustration of botanical illustration is a subject for some of our students who are interested in. Here, this was a workshop she gave and showed us how to prepare a specimen for archive. And then, you know, we had to, like I said, the dye garden, they didn't plan it, you know, because they couldn't be there for the 2020. So Helen and I went out and tried to salvage what we could of our dye plants and move them to an area where we could have access to them, because, you know, Penn State shut down during the COVID. And here's what we did. You wanna take it from here?
And this was my garden.
This is, yeah.
And I generally, this was a deserted garden when I came back to Pennsylvania. So I thought, I had collected all the seeds from the previous year. And I had buckets, and I had made my own little archive of everything we had worked with, which came in very handy, because I came up and I said, I'm going to grow the syllabus. We're going to just grow it. So this was the garden. It was just full of all our dye plants and some. There's madder in there at the back that should be ready this year.
Here's what started.
And it was completely just a bald garden when I started. There you go. And every day I'd go out, and I even tore up the parking space and made it into a dye bed right up here in the front. And then we do tests to see what we had in the garden. So we had these big old painting stretchers that we just process them and see how our palette was doing, how our syllabus was growing.
I know, it's bad.
Right. Keep going there, Kim.
Okay. I thought maybe it's on a delay, I think, because I'm seeing two different.
And it was such a lovely
you seeing it
experience.
now?
Yeah, we're grand.
There's
We
more. This
We
was,
talked by phone.
we just started both working from home. Sorry.
Yeah, we talked by phone. Kim would show me what she's doing. And it was a real way of being tactile and cyber at the same time. We're on repeat or something.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get it to go forward.
Okay.
It's just,
We
it's
started making
really-
paint.
It's really storming here and like, it's not going in the order that I want it. What slide can you see right now? Can you see your garden?
You can see the yellow barn in the garden and the paints on the side. On the,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So we both set up outdoor studios. And that's what she was saying. We were talking on the phone and
I'm very much interested in pigments, and we had touched on them, but we didn't have time before we all closed down. So we started making pigments through, you know, a second century process that we found in Pliny, which is Italian scholar who documented paints. So I was interested in finding as much as possible, given the confines of our little area. So we'd all go, look what we did today. Look what we made. And then we reached out to, we were interested in pollution in our environment. And Kim had made a contact with the Watershed program with Brandon. What's Brandon's last name, Kim?
Deal, Brandon
So-
Deal.
And he talked to us about what they were doing with reclaiming the rivers and reclaiming pigment from very, very polluted rivers. So he, in the next slide in the middle there, you'll see some of the pigments that he gave us, which is cleaned up, reclaimed pigment from riverbeds. So that we put that to our kind of map we were building of central Pennsylvania.
And this one, just I'll say this real quick, our students, you know, couldn't be in person with us. So we made up little tiny CSA shares, the community sustainable art instead of agriculture. And we mailed these to our students where they could come pick them up. So that while they were on COVID lockdown and working remote, they could have make their own smaller batch dyes on their own. So that's what you're seeing here.
Wow.
I think we were the least, we were cyber, of course, we were all doing it through Zoom, but we had these tactile kind of things to pick up and drop off and grow. And it was really lovely. It was really lovely.
There you can see all of our testing.
And pigments on the bottom right. Oh, go back. It doesn't matter. In the center here, there's the pigments we made from the area right there, from the plants. And these are ink tests on the right.
So every Tuesday we get on Zoom and have a live studio. It's kind of like a cooking show or something. And even though the students might not have the same exact things that we had, we just got together and talked, you know, like how some people were doing cooking together. We would do our natural dye together. So they would show us what they were doing. We would show them what we were doing and what we gathered in our area. And then they would have new things that they gathered because they were working remotely that we might not had access to at Penn State or that we hadn't worked with. And so it really required us to be thinking on our feet and research as well, finding them, you know, old recipes or things that they could work from. And this is lichens on the side. We both like to work with lichens dye. There's just a dye shot. And here's some more from Helen's syllabus garden. Oh, this one's, hold on, it's gonna
I
catch
think
up.
that's Dyer's
There it
chamomile,
is.
which I just planted some this morning.
I love this one.
Avocados, matters. I just love testing things. I think I test them all day, you know, with the different wardens and different plants. Like I had about 5 different marigolds.
You just learn so much every time you grew up a batch of dye, everything. But we do talk about how the pollutants and how so much fast fashion is harmful to our environments. And we have an age group that, you know, is oftentimes the main demographic for fast fashion, you know, with the average clothing only maybe given 2 weeks, and then it's thought of as being disposable. So we do talk a lot about that and how to keep things out of landfills. The students go to Goodwill. That's one of our assignments at the beginning. So we really advocate them working with what they have and not creating more. This was a really great collaboration we did with the engineering unit and learning faculty on campus. We this is a solar mobile die cart that was kind of our brainchild. And we really wanted to be able to work on location out in the farm and be able to charge our own battery to do our dies. So this is what became of that collaboration. And this is just some scenes from that. Along the way, we've had lots of faculty collaboration, and we continue to collaborate with different faculties that want to do something with the sustainability aspect within our studio. And we have plans for the fall to work with even more faculty. So we just keep stretching and reaching across departments when we need something or when the students need something, or as faculty become interested. We like to keep the conversation and collaborations going and fresh. I think that's it.
It's in everybody's consciousness now of being sustainable. We're getting more and more requests for, show me how to do this, show me how to do that. We've all our graduate students, all their thesis dealt with sustainability this year, every one of them. So that's very positive, I think, you know. And our class has a waiting list. We used to beg for students. 3 years ago, we were begging for students, going, oh my God, they're going to close us down. Remember that, Kim?
Yes, I do.
Posters everywhere, and running around and talking to classes. And we'd be lucky if we had 6 students. If we had 7, we'd know the class would go. Now we have a waiting list. So
How big is your class?
15 students. That's all we have. It's a small, you know, it's a small room.
And are these mostly art students or are they from other disciplines?
We could get it. Initially, it was from everywhere. It was all over the university. Now it's mostly art students, but we could honestly, everybody in every area wants to take it at this point.
But there is a maturity that we found that was missing a little bit in when it was just open to the 200 level for like a gen ed. You had to have some idea of process art, right? And you had to have some idea of what it takes to be committed to both a visual research and a studio practice. So that was why one of the reasons we moved it to 400 level, and the work has just been incredible. We don't have it here with this particular presentation, but like Helen said, our graduate students all worked with it this time, and they have some super great exhibitions for their thesis this year.
Are any of them doing wearable art?
Yeah, Harrison did some, didn't he?
Yes, there's a lot of artists actually working with wearable art right now. And so we would show them artists in the field who were dealing with the body and fashion. Mm-hmm. And Harrison, he was actually a lot of them, you know, when I think of them, a lot of them were thinking of their bodies and what they wear.
Right. Should have them join our Sustainable Cloth Challenge. Would love to see what they're making.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them repurpose. That's true. They, you know, the lookbooks that they have like a Stitch Fix and stuff like that are corporate and just kind of more consumerism type things. They would make these lookbooks all from like the Goodwill finds, and then they transform them either by natural dyes or sewing and, you know, fashion. We don't have a fashion necessarily course at Penn State, so we get a few students come through that are really interested in that kind of textile.
So is your class limited to art students?
No, it's not limited. It's just that right now we have it's an art sustainable studio, and our main purpose for this is because we were studio faculty. When we first started, it was more or less a materials class about being sustainable in your own studio. And it soon grew into a whole conversation of sustainability across the board. So now we're even rethinking that, and that's why we do so many collaborations and intersectionality collaborations and connections, so that we can have those larger conversations.
Our course this summer in Ireland is very mixed. It's 50% English majors. We've got a couple of psychology majors. We've got art majors. So that course is a lot broader, and it's taught by several faculty, a poet and Kim and myself and there's a climate scientist, and there's a farmer, and there's a social activist. So that's a different kind of class, but it's coming out of the Sustainable Studio.
And that was pretty much full too. We have 17 students going.
Yeah. Well, shall I move this back to gallery mode so people can visit and
Yes,
ask questions?
yes.
So I taught the Sustainable Ag program at our community college for 11 and a half years. And there is definitely a difference when people have life experience. So if you're teaching at Penn State, I imagine, your oldest student is maybe average is 22 years old, which they really haven't had that much life experience, but more than the 19-year-olds. And at the community college, I might have somebody 60 in the class and somebody 21 in the class, but it made for a really good mix, and you have a lot of different conversations when you have people older than 22.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've had a range in ages in our class. We've had people who have come back after retirement to take art classes. So we do have a mixed age group.
I want to take your class.
Yeah, and actually, when we moved it to the 400 level, that was another reason why we did, because that allows our master students to come in through our graduate students as well. So a lot of them are older, and they also help raise the bar and add a whole nother element of conversation, of lived experience to the classroom as well. But we do have a lot of ag science students at Penn State, and I'm thinking of Sydney in particular. She won a farming scholarship at the Pennsylvania Farm Show, and there's a lot of students that have a real authentic voice that find their way into Sustainable Studio, and we're always appreciative of them sharing that with us.
Last year we had a graduate student from theater, costume design, and she wanted to make a pair of pants, this was her mission, to make a pair of jeans that were sustainable, and that she could have the carbon count of that pair of pants, where the fiber came from.
And the cost. The cost too, remember?
The cost, yeah, it was all about cost, the carbon cost, the physical cost, the emotional cost, the labor cost. And she just made this incredible graph with these really nice pair of pants that she ended up with. And she dye them with alder, I think, because that's all that was available in January or February in Pennsylvania. So she sourced them and
Wow.
That was an amazing project.
And she documented, and some of it's a film, I believe. I don't know if she ever got the film part done, but she documented, even like she had to get a permit to pick the alder, and she had to go, just all the things that she had to do to get this one pair of sustainable pants. And
$600.
It shouldn't be like that, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
$600. That was the real cost in money cost.
Wow.
That's a lot different than your $20 pair at Old Navy, right?
Right. But it was an amazing project, and she brought so much to the course,
So you said you started out with begging students, you now have a waiting list, and it's gone from just studio materials that are sustainable to thinking more of the social aspects. Where do you see this going? Because I feel like it has so much potential to grow. So
we've had no backing and no budget. So it hasn't held us back. I want to point out, because we just grew the damn thing, we were like, okay, we'll do it this way. I see us now having enough visuals that we could actually apply for grants or actually defend ourselves for some funding. I don't know. I see it. I see us needing help. I see us needing, at least TAs in our course. I think it can go so many places, you know, it really can. And I see the demand for it only getting more and more and more.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, there's a real, I'm always struggling with both the content, but also the making part of it. So initially it was called Materials, Makers, and Methods. And there was some of the catalyst for it was students would say to us all the time, how do you know how to make that? How do you know how to do that? And Helen and I both grew up in a community where if you didn't make it, you didn't have it. Like we know how to make things. We know how to do things, the men and the women in our community. So having those life skills to bring and having students want to know, like, how do you know how to can? How how do you know how to crochet or whatever it is? So they want to know those things. And when they first started asking me, I was like, what do you want to do? Send us back 200 years? No, they want to use it as an act of resilience in their work and talk about it, right? And to have those skill sets that if they want to, they can use them, and they can use them in a great way, in a great conversation. So it's been really interesting for me to see what all they're interested in too, because they're as much a partner with us as we are bringing the content to them.
We had one young gentleman who made spoons out of fallen timber. He'd go around campus and find fallen timber, and he would make these incredible spoons that he would soak in our dye. And you know, we take that opportunity of to point him to artists who are doing different versions of that kind of foraging, and how it could be kind of a social action. He was a very interesting young man. Sorry.
I found some of my most fun students were those that, even though it was a community college, some people came in with already having had a degree from somewhere else, and some of them had an art degree, or they had gone to a four-year college and majored in art. And I realized the reason why they did that, they were very creative people. And you get into an academic four-year college and you're just taking classes. And if they want to really use their hands, they enroll in art. So, but then they don't know what to do with that. So they needed direction. So they were some of the best students in the Sustainable Ag program.
Definitely. We even have one of our graduate students in the MFA in ceramics. He did this, you know how brook trout are indicators of the health of a stream. He made these incredible little mugs that were just looked like the outside of a brook trout. He perfected the glaze and had them all perfectly. And then he would put them around different streams that were threatened with a little note in there that said, if you take this stream, if you take this cup, please make a donation here for this stream. And just we have so many students who are just so sensitive and so creative, and just like she said, wanting to merge the content with their creativity and with their hands and with their major, really.
Yeah.
I wonder if I could ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
First of all, sorry if I missed it, but I'm just curious, are you in the art department, or are you your own department, sort of the sustainability department?
We wish.
We're not our own department. We started off as a random class out of the painting area, because we're both trained as painters. And now we're in this funny limbo where when it comes to budget, we thought we had a budget this year and the painting area was going to fund us. And suddenly it just got, no, that's not your area. So we don't know who we are now. We don't know who's feeding us.
Sometimes it's a good place to be when you don't know your identity.
Well,
But
it's also a non like canonized, it's not a non-silo type of things, because when you don't know where you are, or you don't have necessarily a home, an academic home, then you can work wherever.
exactly,
You can work
because you really
between.
bridge so many different areas of study.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I had two other questions, and one was just to go back to that connection that you made with the watershed. I was sort of interested in particular in the pigments that you showed, and the sort of I was wondering if they came out of, I mean, were they using the pigments as a way to gather information about pollution levels? Because you mentioned the work that was being done. So I'm just curious.
It was an acid mine reclamation. And they started, for iron oxide out of Pennsylvania streams.
And manganese.
And they started, after they cleaned it up, they realized that, there was pigment here. There was a way to maybe reuse this as well. So they cleaned it and they made these little pastels for school kids and stuff like that. They would have field trips and they would talk about it. And then he sent the pigment packs to us for us to research and to see would our school or would our art students like to use these for anything. And then that opened up a whole conversation and him coming to talk about it. And then we're kind of there where we are with it. We have not quite gave the okay. We're still looking at our materials research to make sure that the safety level is there for our students to use them.
So were these naturally occurring substances or substances that were dumped and that needed to be removed, or
from
both?
mining? Yeah,
Oh,
from mining.
okay.
That the red, how the streams get all orange,
Absolutely.
oxidized. So
Yeah.
as it comes up and oxidizes, then it changes the whole everything within the stream. So they're trying to remove all that iron oxide out. And we have yellow boy, a purple, and like an orange. Iron oxide that comes out that he sent us. But because it was all strip mined and it was all reclaimed, we want to make sure that this pigment is clean enough for our students to use too, if they're going to make paint, and the sustainability of it as well.
Manganese is deadly, it's a deadly pigment. It takes your nervous system down. It's naturally occurring. But we're more interested in a test tube as an artifact that comes out of a polluted strip mine than actually using it. They use it in ceramics and then it becomes inert. And our student who is working with the brook trout, he was using it to get an incredible black glaze on things. But it's inert then, so it's no longer dangerous.
Oh, so much! It's such a rich territory. I think all the projects, your student projects too, it would be really interesting to have some way to share that with the community, the larger community, because I think people would be fascinated to see some of those projects.
I think you're right. You're right. It's just that even though there's two of us teaching this course, we're learning on the job, we're growing on the job, and we're gathering on the job. And we're also making these links with, like we worked with the Bug Museum last year. We worked with Cochineal and we did an exhibition with the students while, looking at the history of Cochineal, the political and the, just what they are. I see such potential for what we're doing, and it would be fantastic to have a workshop, a place to exhibit the pants with the list of the cost of them and everything.
Absolutely.
You're right. You're so right.
Yeah.
And even for the Bug Museum, it's not just working with one. We often work with several. And so it was about lace. We had one of our students who was really interested in her heritage, from South America, in the lace. For that was her whole project. So she got us off on this whole idea of lace. So then we collaborated with Scraps and Skeins, which is a local community organization where all the profit goes to mental health awareness and things like that. So we took our students over there. They talked about what they did. We all bought our lace there from the secondhand place for them, that all the money went to them. Then we came home, dyed it all with cochineal and the bugs and the gallnut bugs, and we put it all in the Bug Museum, a big installation of lace. It's a beautiful installation.
And that's just 2 weeks. That was a 2-week segment.
That was
This really sounds like it would be, you need like a live cam or something to your sustainable studio, something like that, or that people, if students were open to it, I guess there's that aspect of it, but
I think they are open to it, especially this generation. They're looking for change. They're looking for hope. They're looking for a way to have some control over their choices.
Yeah, it's this kind of work. I'm also a teacher. It's so empowering and so important.
Yes.
To everyone. But
You're right. You're right. Thank you. Absolutely. And I think that's the students come in, they're so burdened by the planet. They're so burdened by the future. They're so burdened by COVID. Now they're so burdened by, you know, we have students asking us, is it safe to go to Europe? Will there be a nuclear war? You know, they're 22 years of age, but they're, my God, they're burdened. And in our class, we're makers. We've hired a basket weaver in Ireland to show, he's extraordinary basket weaver. He's in museums all through Europe, to show us how to weave a basket, how to dye, how to find Sally switches, how to, I grew up, my father made lobster pots. I know how to do this, but this guy is off the charts. He's the best in the world basket weaver. And so we just bring them to a craft, you know?
Yeah, very exciting work. Goodness.
That's what I wanted to ask was what is your syllabus, or what are you guys doing in Ireland?
I started this program a million years ago between the visual arts and the written arts. I've always taught it with a poet and myself, and then I would choreograph speakers, up to 35 speakers, heavily into the literary world, into the visual arts, into the social action and science world. So I would have people talk to them. We'd visit somebody's organic farm, or we'd find somebody who's the poet laureate. We might meet the two of them on the same day. We might have dinner with the two of them. Somebody else who's a forager might make that dinner for all of us and sit down, all of us as equals. So I would find these celebrated people who are making a difference in whatever genre our theme would be of that year. And we would go to 4 spots in Ireland, and I was interested in decentralization. I was interested in things that happen outside of urban centers. I was interested in what happens in small communities. And then this year, Kim and I were talking. I thought, my God, the Irish program has been the sustainable studio for so long. And what we do is so merged, and it's so exciting working together that we thought, let's try this. Let's see if the university notices if we do this. Let's see if we can change the one on campus and bring it to Ireland. And we did. We managed to do it partially. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of it this year. Kim is coming for 2 weeks, and we're working with a dyer in the Burren, and we're staying in an art school in the Burren, and we have an incredible list of speakers, poets, oceanographers, organic farmers, that artist that I mentioned that deals with wool and her farm. Place is a huge part of both Kim and mine's everything, you know, where you're from and how it shapes you. And we study it in music, we study it in language, we study it in visual arts, we study it in theater. We've booked 7 plays for the 5 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great program. I love that program.
But we also have some visiting returning students that took our sustainable program, who are like our first guinea pigs that are coming along. They're going to graduate this year probably, but they're the ones that are there. We have 3 of them that are coming over, and they're so interested in doing their own research, and they're wonderful students. We really, really appreciate these women. And one's doing a whole thing on ink. So when she gets to Trinity College with the Book of Kells and all those old manuscripts, of course, she wants to dig into that. For the first 2 weeks, they'll be in Dublin. And then when they get over to the Burn, I'm meeting them there. We'll be meeting with a forager. We're going to be meeting with a natural dyer from over there, and the Galway sheep and hand weavers, and anybody that's open
a bow
to that,
maker.
you know, they're going to be all excited about that.
We've got a bow maker who makes some of the best bows in the world, and he works with Pernambuco, which is that red. You probably know it as Brazil wood as a dye. So he all year saves all the shavings from his bows and has a bag this big for us. So this idea of using the scrap as somebody else's craft, but he'll talk about music, notes, craft, and anyway, it's that kind of program.
It's a gorgeous dye. It's a gorgeous color.
Wow.
And we didn't say they have to keep a sketchbook. Basically, that's what they're making. But the last time, Helen always has had that pretty much on this program. And I curated a show before COVID of all the exhibitions, it was an exhibition for all the study abroad programs, not just Ireland, but the star of our show was the Ireland sketchbooks. And they were like fat, like sculptural works of art. So we anticipate, this year having them be stitched in, with more fibers and more stuffing.
Wow.
So who gets to sign up for this class?
Yeah.
Well,
Do you know
we're-
what's really, we used to have to struggle to get people to take
Okay.
that class.
Really, is it open to the community, or is it?
Well, we've been kicking around the idea of having workshops.
The Irish program, you have to be is somehow associated with the university. Unfortunately, I wanted to change that, but for some reason it's that way. I just don't think it's in students' psyche. They think it's really expensive, but our program, the credits cost the same. If you're an out of state student, it's the same cost. It's in-state tuition.
Wow.
So it's a great way for an out of state student to get a very cheap summer.
Wow.
Great summer. But anyway, we kind of make stuff up, Kim and I, basically. We charge our own batteries. And we charge each other's batteries, like our solar cards. And the courses is just both courses they're off the charts, really. They're really off the charts. There's no way you could document them. There's no way. Writing a syllabus is silly because things happen. People show up. We have a syllabus, a core, but it's a performative living class, very much so.
Helen, you called it the best as we're a verb. We're not a noun, we're a verb.
I used to call the Irish program the raw bar, because it's the raw bar. It's like real experience. We'll go to that poet's kitchen table and she will talk to you about poetry.
Yeah, what a fantastic experience for them.
We hope so.
I grew up in Ohio and took 4-H and learned how to sew then. And so I sewed my clothes, but all my adult life, I've sewed all my clothes, including jeans. And I never imagined I would make my own fabric. But I do now. I grow cotton and flax for linen and make my fabrics, but and then sew them. But I have a different outlook. I could never find anything to fit me anyway, which is why I sewed. But I have a different outlook on thrift stores. I'm different than most people I know. That I feel that if you depend on that, thinking you're really sustainable to find your clothes, then you're perpetuating a system where people can have way too many clothes and then get rid of them at the thrift stores and then feel good about themselves buying more, and other people feel good about buying that excess. So and one person had said, well, they're just going to throw it away if we don't buy it. I said, how do you know that? If it starts piling up at the thrift stores, they'll have to find another way to manage textiles.
Right.
I'm very interested in that which you grow. I'd love to see photos of your farm or of your crop.
There's some of it is on I've got a website. Well, there's garden stuff on the website from stuff I taught before. But I've got a book coming out, be out July 1st, 2023, called Homegrown Flax and Cotton, the DIY guide to, I can't remember all the words, growing, processing, sewing, weaving, or whatever, into textile, fiber into cloth. And
It's awesome.
Wow, that's fantastic.
and I am so excited. Stackpole Books is going to be publishing it, and they publish Tom Nisley. He's a weaver. They'd publish his books.
I just found you. Fantastic.
So if you go homeplaceearth.com and then click on the blog, in 2017, I wrote a whole series about cotton and flax for linen. And then I kind of backed off because I was from the blog because I was just focusing on my own fiber work. So, but this dress I have on, and picture of it would be on my blog. Got a thing. I designed it, but the warp is cotton, and all the colors of cotton that I was growing, and the weft, let's see, the warp is cotton, and the weft is linen from what I grew.
Wow.
So you can add So I don't have, so it's naturally colored cotton, so no dyeing. And you can add color to the linen by mixing it with colored cotton. But also I made a linen dress that's not on the blog, but it's, I don't believe I made it last year. It's got a indigo dyed from my Japanese indigo dyed warp and then regular weft for linen. It's all linen.
Amazing.
Growing linen and flaxseed, and it was on our first dye garden. We had cotton in that first dye garden, and then we just were so overwhelmed with everything. And but it's something we really would love to circle back to, because as painters, that was one of the things, first item on our mind for materiality was linen and cotton duck, to stretch or to paint from the materiality of the class. But now we're really interested in it for many, many, many reasons. So yeah, we would love to get the book and read it.
And stay in touch.
Stay in touch.
Have you all been a part of heard of the Pennsylvania Flax Project? It's
I've heard of it.
Heidi Barr of Kitchen Textiles, but she's been working with an organic gardener, and what they're doing is they farmed, Kirsten's a part of it and can probably tell you more, but they farmed out a 1 square yard amount of seeds to a lot of people, and they're testing how it grows in this region, in our area. And
What's
it's
her name? Sorry.
Heidi Barr. And Kirsten, who else is trying to think of the second person who has the farm?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to check my notebook, but I think if you just go to PA Flax Project, you'll find both of them. I think it's Emily, and I can't remember her last name.
I
Yeah.
think I attended a workshop for them. They had a talk or something.
They
Yeah.
did. They
Yeah.
came to our, yeah, they gave us a talk. Sorry.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
No, that's all right. I was
I
going to take you out to the garden to see how big our flax is. It's only 2 inches tall, but it's really neat. They have about 60 participants, all growing, this square yard of flax to see how it does in different situations. And the idea is then to gather all that information and hopefully initiate a larger flax, project with farmers and get a mill going again, because apparently there was a big flax industry at one point, or at least a sustainable flax industry in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I am
My
going to
book
have to.
my book will have directions. Actually, on my blog, there's directions already for making hackles, and one of my blog posts, and it'll have directions for making a tabletop flax break. I just want people to get started doing this.
I'm going to have to jump off. I'm so sorry.
We are coming up on air. I want to thank you all so
Yeah.
much for being here. This has been fabulous. We can hardly wait to see more of what you do.
Yeah.
We all want to take your class. Hopefully at some point we'll find a way to collaborate and make it more accessible even to a broader circle. It's just
Oh,
a
that would be
marvelous
fantastic.
concept.
So
Thank you.
inspiring,
Having
you
us.
guys. So
Thank you
inspiring.
so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Great.
the
Lovely meeting you all.
Thanks
Nice
a
to
lot.
meet you.
Stay
Bye-bye.
in touch.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye. There we go.
Reg, wait a minute.